In this video, we dive into the tragic story of a bright and beloved college student whose life was cut short under shocking circumstances. It can be very dangerous to become obsessed with someone, particularly if you let the obsession grow and fester, and especially if you don't feel the same way about that person. When these feelings are mixed with rejection, things go horribly wrong. Often, the innocent person is the one who suffers when one of these habits gets out of hand. We generally find it creepy or disturbing when someone is obsessed with another person. But Haley Anderson, 22, it all started out very casually, but ended very badly. Before we dive into today's case, I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're into true crime cases like this one, be sure to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Now, let's get into the case. In 2018, Haley Anderson went to school in New York at Binghamton University. She lived in a flat with Josie Arton, Michelle Tapali, and a few other students. Everyone in the flat was in their last year of college. Haley was in college to become a nurse, and as she always does, she couldn't wait to finish. She had also already found a job on Long Island at Northwell Health in the emergency room. Haley's mom said she was a young hippie who loved music and was kind and caring. This, along with her desire to help others, made it clear what she wanted to do for a living. Her future looked just as bright as she had imagined it. She met Orlando Tercero, a fellow nursing student who was born in Miami and grew up in Nicaragua, while they were both in school. Even though they had very different upbringings, they hit it off right away. They started going out together, but at first, they weren't too serious about it. After the fact, Haley's friends said that the two broke up and got back together several times, but stayed buddies each time. Whenever Haley wasn't studying for a test or going to class, she liked hanging out with her roommates. There she was with Josie and Michelle doing just that on March 8th that year. The group chose to stay up late that night and play board games and share a few drinks in their flat. Around 4 a.m., they decided it was time to sleep, so they each went to their own room. There was no way any of them could have known that the next day would be the last day of their lives as they knew it. Why Josie went missing. That night, she got to her room and quickly fell asleep. She slept all night without a care in the world. When she woke up the next morning, she decided to talk to her friends after having her coffee. When she got to Haley's room, she saw right away that Haley wasn't in bed. It wasn't very unusual. In fact, most college students would agree with that. Haley wasn't responding to Josie's text message when she asked if she was still going to the poem reading that night. Haley said she would be there, but Josie really wanted her friends to be there. Calls to Haley's cell phone were also not answered. Her friends were getting more and more worried as the day went on because Haley was usually quick to answer. She was not like this at all. She was also very busy on her social media accounts most of the time, but since the day before, none of them had seen any activity. This wasn't a good sign. Her friends thought that Haley would have at least told her roommates where she was, if she was okay, and if she planned to meet them later for the poem reading. But they hadn't heard a word from her. They began to think that something might be very wrong because she wasn't acting like herself at all. The good news is that her friends remembered that she had an iPhone and could use the Find My Friends app to find it. Thank goodness they were able to find her phone on Oak Street, which was also the street where her boyfriend Orlando lives. This was a perfectly good reason for her sudden disappearance. She had been out with her boyfriend all night and had probably just lost track of time, but Josie and Michelle didn't know it. Things were much worse. It turned out that the cops had already been to Orlando's house that day. His sister called them to say that he had sent her a scary text message earlier that morning. In it, he said that he had done something bad that would make their family look bad, but he didn't say what it was. That was the last time she heard from him, and she hadn't been able to reach him since. His sister called or texted Orlando several times, but he never answered. She then asked if the cops could check on him because he was acting very strangely. The police were happy to do what they were asked and went to his house, but there was no one there when they knocked. The house seemed empty, and since nothing seemed amiss and there was no reason to be scared, they left without talking to him because they didn't have a reason to go inside right away. Orlando probably just wanted to be left alone, and it wasn't their job to worry him. In the evening, when Michelle and Josie got there, nothing had changed. It looked like no one was home because the building was as quiet as ever. Orlando's car wasn't parked in the driveway, which they found odd. They knew Haley's phone was inside the house, though, so they chose to look into it more. They went around the outside of the house until they found a window that was open. Michelle climbed through first, and Josie quickly followed. They began searching the house as they made their way to the bedroom, where they thought Haley's phone would probably be. While they were going through the house, they quickly confirmed that Orlando was not there, as hoped. But after that, their lives would never be the same again. As soon as they walked into the bedroom, Haley was lying in bed with some sheets over her. They knew right away that something was wrong because she was pale and wouldn't answer any of their cries. The girls probably didn't know what was going on right away because they were shocked. They called 911 because they were afraid Haley might be seriously hurt or worse. The cops were then sent back to the house to look into it. When the police showed up, the girls' worst fears came true. Haley had died. As soon as officials realized Haley had died because she couldn't breathe, it didn't take them long to come to that conclusion. Later, a doctor in the area would say that this was done by hand. The pathologist also saw some other odd marks on Haley's neck, but he thought they were from the chain she was wearing. The first thing that everyone thought was, "Where is Orlando?" No one could get in touch with him, and it was clear he wasn't at home all day. When investigators talked to Haley's friends, they quickly found out about her on-again, off-again relationship with Orlando. This made them think that Haley may have had something to do with the crime. Michelle and Josie said that the couple had never gotten too serious and that Haley had ended the relationship for good because she was getting ready to graduate. While they were in school, she was happy to be patient with Orlando. But now that her life was moving on, her wants and needs had changed, and Orlando didn't fit with how she thought her future would be. But then it turned out that there was another man in the picture, Kevin Ocampo, Haley's ex-boyfriend. Haley and Orlando took a break in September 2017, and that's when she and Kevin got back together. They found out about this while Orlando, her and her boyfriend, were at a house party. He didn't take it well and was seen yelling at her during the night. Orlando seemed to think that when they said they were on break, that meant they were just going to be alone for a while. Haley thought it meant they could see other people, though. In that conversation, Orlando told Haley that he loved her and didn't want her to date anyone else. But Haley refused to give in and said that she only wanted to be friends because she didn't feel the same way I did. Haley went to Kevin's house after the party and stayed there. This is when the first sign of trouble showed up. They woke up the next morning to find Haley's car tires cut. Kevin went outside and saw the damage. Everyone was sure Orlando was to blame because it was clear he was angry about their relationship. She called the police, who then questioned Orlando, but he insisted he wasn't guilty. She also knew that Orlando would be charged with a felony if he was found to be guilty for the more than $600 worth of damage done to her tires. She told him that she wouldn't press charges if he agreed to pay for new tires because she didn't want to ruin his future. But it's unclear if he ever agreed to this. Through the course of time, it looks like Kevin and Orlando were able to make peace with each other. Kevin would ask Orlando to join his fraternity because he and Haley were the only two Spanish-speaking students in school. But Orlando would be kicked out of the group when it was revealed that he had slept with Haley while Kevin and Haley were still dating. After this, Orlando told Haley over and over that he wanted to end his own life to make her feel bad about what had happened. It was clear that Orlando wanted more from Haley than she was ready to give. Even though she was tired of it, she never turned her back on him and kept being friends with him. Soon, Orlando began to act obsessively. She would often drive by the flat she shared with Josie and Michelle, and would even knock on their door without warning. Usually, it was Josie's job to tell him that what he was doing was wrong and that he needed to leave, but no matter how clearly she told him, he didn't get it. Going back to the crime at hand, almost everyone who was working on the case was sure that Orlando killed Haley, but there were still a lot of questions that needed to be answered. Like, what time did he leave the house that morning? Haley went to Orlando's house by herself, or did he pick her up? Luckily, there were security cameras all around his house, and police were able to find video of Haley and Orlando walking up to the house together. They said she looked like she was there on purpose, and that there was nothing fishy about the video. After that, they stayed in the house for a few hours. Eventually, Orlando was seen leaving the building and picking up trash in the yard. After that, he went to a nearby drugstore and bought melatonin and a bottle of medicine to help him sleep. They found this out when they found a pharmacy ticket inside the house. He then went back to his house and stayed there for 7 hours. After that, he was seen leaving and going into the basement of his house. This was the first big sign that police found. Now they were going to go down to the basement to see if there was any evidence that could help them figure out where Orlando had gone. But they had no idea what they were about to find. Police were able to tell that Orlando tried to kill himself while he was in the basement because they searched it. A set of hooks that had been screwed into a doorway and a length of rope were found. However, some accounts say that the rope was actually a tie. Police also found blood on the floor, which made them think Orlando had hurt himself when he fell during the try. Finally, police found a note in Spanish that said, "Father, I'll see you soon. I'm really sorry about this. I never felt I could do this." Since his father had died years before, the note was seen as both proof that he planned to end his own life and an admission that he had taken Haley's. He knew he would be the first person suspected of the crime, so it's hard to say what was going through his mind at this time. But since his plan to kill himself didn't work, he must have been desperate to get away as quickly as possible. The last time he was seen leaving the property, he was carrying a suitcase. His next moves put him at JFK International Airport, where he got on a plane with his head still bandaged from the injury. He ran away to Nicaragua, where he had dual citizenship, thinking that the police would not be able to find him there. But the main problem with his plan is that the United States and Nicaragua have an extradition treaty. This means that even if he were to escape to Nicaragua, if U.S. investigators found him to be guilty of the crime, he would be arrested right away and sent back to the U.S., at least in theory. The local district attorney thought that might be the case here because the Nicaraguan government has refused to send inmates back to the U.S. in the past. Once District Attorney Stephen Cornwell learned that Orlando had left the country, he was sure that he would never be punished for what he had done because it would be up to the Nicaraguan government to decide if he would be sent back to the U.S. He had 2 citizenships, so the odds didn't look good. It turned out that Orlando's mother met him at the airport when his flight arrived, and the 2 of them drove north for 3 hours to get to her house. He didn't make a big deal out of himself here because he knew that cops were after him in New York. While all of this was going on, Haley's family was still in shock over her death. To make things worse, they couldn't get in touch with the authorities in Nicaragua, so they didn't know what they could do to catch Orlando. The cops in that country might not have known that he was wanted in the U.S., and they didn't know if they were even trying to catch him. However, they didn't know that the case had already made headlines there. It seems that he then tried to end his life again, but failed, though this has never been proven. This is a safe assumption because investigators learned that his mother drove him to the hospital 4 days after he arrived and treated wounds he caused himself, though it was never made clear what kinds of wounds he was treated for. Sadly for Orlando, this choice would be the one that finally cost him everything. Someone knew him from the wanted posters that had spread across the country by the time he got to the hospital. No matter who this witness was, they called the police and reported him. He was finally caught by detectives when they found him at the hospital. Orlando was charged with taking Haley's life back in the U.S., and agents had to wait to see if he would be sent back so that he could be put on trial. Over the next year, officials from both the U.S. and Nicaragua discussed whether he should stay in Nicaragua or be sent back to the U.S. In the end, it was decided that the hearing would take place in his home country. Both the cops and Haley's family were not happy to hear this. I think it's a clear case of miscarriage of justice. The crime didn't even happen in Nicaragua, so all the proof and information about the investigation would be given to the right people after the fact. And we all know how that works out. This scared Haley's family because they also knew that there would be no jury in the trial and that a single judge would have to decide what Orlando should do for what he did. It got even worse. Orlando wasn't even charged with second-degree murder. Instead, he was charged with femicide, which is a hate crime in Nicaragua. Orlando wouldn't even be asked to enter a plea, which makes it clear why Haley's family was worried about the process that would be used. The prosecution used the fact that Orlando had been obsessed with Haley and that people who knew her best were aware of this as a major point of prosecution. Her friends said again that Orlando broke Haley's trust by killing her, probably while she was asleep, even though she had freely entered his home, showing that she trusted him. They also said that Orlando's obsession had been going on for up to 6 months, even after Haley told him that she didn't want a serious relationship and that she was back together with Kevin. Orlando didn't seem to understand this information. He was set on either getting Haley back or getting rid of her for good. The court thought that Orlando had brought up the idea of getting back together with Haley the morning she died. People think that she turned him down one last time, which is why he chose to kill her. Friends of Haley were able to witness via live teleconferencing. They repeated what they had already said about Orlando's obsessive behavior in the months before the crime. They told her that he was sometimes seen sitting on their porch without being called, that he cut Haley's tires, and that he would call the apartment to ask for her, even though they told him over and over to stop. The judge also looked at security footage from outside Orlando's house in court. It showed him entering the house with Haley and then leaving several times while she was still inside. There was also evidence that he tried to kill himself. It was also asked of the doctor who worked on Haley's case. He confirmed that Haley had been strangled by hand, and the prosecution said again that Haley's life had been taken by a man who couldn't accept that she had made a choice that he didn't agree with. They said that his obsessive personality was what drove him to commit such a horrible crime that could not be forgiven. As of this point, there was no doubt that Orlando had committed the crime. To try to clear his name, his defense team chose to base their case on the fact that he had been drinking the night before he met Haley. They said he didn't remember anything that happened that night and that he had gone temporarily insane earlier in the night from drinking too much, which is what made him lose it when she turned him down and attacked her out of jealousy. This was clearly a last-ditch effort to get Orlando legally insane at the time of the crime so that his term would be lighter or the case would be thrown out completely. In stark contrast to the prosecution, the defense only called one witness, a psychiatrist who checked out Orlando after he was jailed. His story was that when he asked Orlando what had happened, Orlando said he was too drunk to remember what he had done and couldn't give any details of the crime. He said the only thing he remembered was waking up the next morning and realizing Haley was dead. A therapist was asked to guess what Orlando's mental state would have been at the time of the crime. He said he couldn't, but that when he talked to Orlando after the fact, there was nothing out of the ordinary about his mental state. Then Orlando's defense team said that he wasn't known to be aggressive and that it was possible that he only did the crime because he was provoked, but they didn't have any proof to support this idea. After hearing from both sides, the judge left the courtroom for 90 minutes. When she came back, she found the defendant guilty. The judge gave the ruling and said that Orlando clearly couldn't accept Haley's choice. She also said that she thought Orlando wanted to punish Haley for turning him down again. He was found guilty of killing a woman, and she thought that the maximum punishment of 30 years in prison was fair. She said during the sentence that all women have the right to life and that crimes against women should have the harshest punishments possible. Orlando was therefore going to prison for 30 years. Police from both Nicaragua and the United States worked together across lines to bring justice to a woman whose life had been ruined by a man who would not accept no for an answer. This was the first time that police from both countries had worked together in this way. After everything was over, Haley's family said they were shocked by the result because they thought the trial would go in a very different direction. However, they were happy that the judge had made the right choice. In these kinds of trials, something like a show trial is often held just for attention's sake, and offenders get away with their crimes after the fact. But Orlando was going to pay for what he did. But Orlando also wouldn't accept this decision. This man really couldn't accept anything that didn't agree with him. Even though there was a lot of evidence against him, he chose to appeal his conviction. Later, his defense team decided they wanted a different psychiatrist to look at him. In the end, both his requests for a new psychiatric evaluation and a shorter sentence were turned down. He was told that he would have to accept the 30-year term that had been given to him in the first place. Without a doubt, Orlando will never come back to the United States because he is still wanted for arrest, even though he would have already served his time abroad. The decision to not charge the killer was a big relief for Haley's family, who said they had never seen him feel sorry for what he did, except when he was finally caught. Haley wanted to make a change in other people's lives, but someone who only cared about themselves took this chance away from her. But her legacy lives on in the people whose lives she touched while she was living. Karen Haley, Haley's mother, has said that she wants to bring as much attention to femicide crimes as possible. Melanie Heaney, one of Haley's friends, is now a volunteer at an organization called RAIN that works with crimes against women in the U.S., most of the time by men in their lives. She has said that she will be happy if she can keep just one woman from getting into a position like Haley's. While this should be a normal feeling, the sad truth is that many women are hurt every day by jealous partners, and a lot of them never make it out alive. They have to deal with fear, violence, manipulation, and, in the worst cases, having their lives taken away by people who don't seem to understand that we all make our own choices, no matter what other people think. Unfortunately, we can't know when obsession will turn into something even worse. What we can do is make sure that the women and men in our lives have strong support from the people they care about, and that their worries and complaints are not only heard, but also taken seriously when needed. You can't control someone else's life, though, and the choices they make are their own at the end of the day. Thanks for watching. This was a really sad and disturbing case. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you in the next video.